Hey soldiers, picture the scene. You get into work, you set your Starbucks coffee down on your desk, and you open up that internal email. There's a letter in there from HR. See Me is the title. You know what it's all about. You're about to be laid off. More and more Americans are facing this. We're seeing thousands of layoffs every week now. Twitter, they've laid off 50% of their staff, and they're even looking at more layoffs. I got a buddy that works in Verizon. He's saying they're entertaining layoffs. You've got Amazon laying off people. The economy is softening. Now, on this channel, you know we focus on entrepreneurialism and acquiring assets like your own business. But many people choose to work for someone else, and that's just fine, okay? There are risks that come with owning your own business, especially in a softening economy. There are risks that come with being an employee in a softening economy as well. Okay, so each has its pros, each has its cons. But today, let's talk about folk who may be getting laid off. You may be feeling the vibe, okay, that they're coming for you. And what do you do next? Well, let's get into it. First, let's talk about this article on TechCrunch written by Natasha Mascarenhas. Natasha, if I mispronounced that wrong, please let me know. Natasha is doing a mea culpa. You don't see this in the media often, but she said that she thought the layoffs were done and over with, but now she's saying, hey, wait a minute. I think it's worse than I originally anticipated. She says, well, that didn't take long. In late October, I wrote about how the tide is shifting on tech layoffs, highlighting that 70% of layoffs that happened this year were conducted over the summer. In fact, using layoffs.fyi.data, I claimed that the fall was shaping up to be far less gruesome in terms of net new events and people impacted. Then things got worse. Since I published that post, the number of layoffs have been announced from companies including but not limited to, as we said, Twitter, Meta, Amazon, Chime, Stripe, Lyft, Salesforce, and Cisco. She says, update. As I put this newsletter together, my colleague Kirsten Korosek broke the news that Neuro, another company, laid off 20% of its workforce. Update number 2. Now I'm hearing that Carvana is reportedly going to lay off 1,500 workers. So we're seeing big percentages. Big real numbers, people impacted. What can you do if the hatchet man comes for you? Now, let me just say something real quick. When you're an employee, you trade your time for discounted dollars. But one of the benefits that you have is that you don't have a tremendous investment in that as you would if you were a business owner. So the trade-off is you are far less likely to be able to control your continued employment. But you're far more likely to be able to go and resume that income stream that you were getting from a job. In fact, the less you make, the better off you are in that situation because you have less income to replace. Now, I don't care who you are, business owner, employee, all of you should have multiple streams of income. This is not the 1950s. Ward and June Cleaver and the Beeve and Wally and all these guys where just one guy in the house went to work and it was cool. Everybody was fine. They owned a home. They owned at least one car. The kids were well fed. Everything was great. Those days are long since gone. You need multiple streams of income. Because if you get laid off, you need to be able to fall back on some income. If your business that you're running, if you're just, not working for anybody, but you're a business owner, if that main business or one of those businesses, I should say, falls on, slow times, you then need to be able to fall back on some of those other streams that you have. Okay, so let's do this. There is a video out there from a channel called Project Optimize. This young lady has chronicled her layoff from Microsoft in video format, and she's actually got a couple of videos on the subject. Now, let's watch one clip here and see what she has to say about her observations of being laid off.
The most frustrating thing about this is that things were going really well with my manager and I, right? Every one-on-one we had, he said, Neha, I love how much initiative you're taking. Not only are you doing what you need to, but you're going above and beyond. In our last rewards conversation, he gave me the most increase in salary that really is possible. We had a conversation about promoting me in December. It's like every indication that I had was that I was doing well, I was doing what I needed to do, my rewards were showing it, and then this happens. So it's just frustrating how completely blindsided I was by it.
Okay, so you see, she was laid off from Microsoft, a big corporation. Basically, no matter how hard she was a good worker, she was a hard worker. She got good performance reviews. People liked her, okay? But she was still laid off. The reason for that is because these people are looking at, these decisions clinically. Now, if you watch her video, you'll see, and I will link to it, you'll see that people tried that at, closer to her level, managers closer to her level who knew her, attempted to help her to stay with the company because they knew her job performance. They knew, that she was a good person committed to the cause and whatnot. So they tried to help her, to no avail though, because, a lot of people were getting laid off. So therefore, the competition to stay at the company was tremendous. All right. And that's where advice number one comes into play. Although it didn't work for her in this instance, it seems like she did have some good political connections. Okay. So when you if you're in your company and you're working day to day, you got to make some, you got to do some networking. You got to build relationships. Because the other thing about working at a corporation, especially a large corporation, it's political, people. Okay. Trust me, I've been there. I know. All right. So as you saw her say, in essence, these things come down to needs of the business, very clinical. The executives that are making these cutback decisions, compare them to air traffic control. So you are in your little Cessna and you're flying along and everything looks great. It's sunny out, but air traffic control sees a storm 100 miles out and they're starting to reroute traffic in order to keep everyone safe and to keep everyone in the air, okay? So they might tell you, hey, you got to land at the nearest airport, take it in. And you might be like, why? But they demand it. You got to land. So this is how these things work. Now, I'm not saying that in a smaller company, it might not be more personality driven. Of course, it's just human nature. But again, that goes back to networking. Now, there is a limit to that, as she details in this next clip.
If you think probabilistically, the likelihood of you getting laid off is low. But I'm just saying, if you are in an organization or a company that is really hurting, personally, I think it's better to jump ship beforehand so that you have control and it's not them pushing you out. It can be really unclear who decides who gets laid off.
All right, guys, so check out Project Optimize and learn from what this young lady is saying about her experience in terms of being laid off. Now, let's get into some of the nitty gritty about what you need to do if you get that pink slip. All right. One of the first things you want to do is you want to see if you can get some kind of letter, some kind of documentation saying that you were laid off for needs of the business unrelated to your performance. Presumably, you're going to be out there looking for a new job and you don't want there to be any ambiguity in terms of why you had to leave the other job. Wasn't because of anything you did, it was purely needs of the business. That's why some sort of documentation attesting to that fact is essential. Now, of course, when you get laid off, you're going to realize a disruption in your income stream. So you're going to need to make absolutely sure that one of the most expensive aspects of your life is covered for a time at least. So you want to inquire about your health insurance benefits. You want to See if that company is going to extend those benefits. If so, how long? Are they going to extend what you signed on to when you did your open enrollment? That sort of thing. Is this going to cover your family members as well? What happens after that expires if you're not on with a new company? Or sometimes you get on with a new company and then they say, well, you're going to get benefits, but it's going to be 6 months from the time that you start your work. This may seem obvious, but you also want to check on that final paycheck. Now, look, some companies like Twitter, they're laying people off, but they're still paying them through a certain point. Find out if that's going to happen with you. Are you just going to get one final paycheck for the time up until you were let go? Or are you going to continue to receive paychecks for a period of time afterward? That's essential to find out. The paycheck piece is essential. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you roll the 401k over. If you've got some retirement plan at that company that is laying you off, go ahead, take that money, roll it over. Now, you may need to talk to somebody about how to do that because, A, you don't want to get a tax penalty. And if you do not roll that money over correctly, you will get exactly that. And you don't want to take on more debt, especially to the IRS in a situation where you've just been laid off. But at the same time, you want to get that money under your control. And some companies have been known after a certain time, if you're not with them as an employee, then they charge you to maintain that 401k. So you want to go ahead and roll that over. And I cannot stress enough, you need to talk to your financial institution or someone to roll that money. Most of the time, what you would be doing is rolling your 401k into a traditional IRA. But again, you've got to do your due diligence. The reason I brought up that example is because you're going from one tax-deferred qualified account, the 401k, to another tax-deferred qualified account. Unlike, you put it in the Roth IRA, oh boy, are you going to get hit with a hell of a tax penalty and probably even some fines outside of that. So you want to be very careful, but at the same time, you want to roll that 401k over. If on the off chance you have a pension, many companies no longer have pensions, but some employees were grandfathered and then they stopped the pension going forward. Same thing. You want to see how you can roll that over, because you wouldn't want to have your pension, this money that you've accumulated, would you want to have it in a company that just laid you off? Now, I'm not talking about anything. It's not personal. But if you guys are in a position where, the economy is impacting you, I want to get all of my money that I've accrued with you. I want to take that and I want it to be under my control. I wish you guys the best, but at the same time, I don't want to be in a position where you fold up and my pension goes with you, because that has been known to happen. And anybody out there who remembers the name Bethlehem Steel here in Maryland, they know what I'm talking about. Now, the company that you work for should offer some sort of severance package. Now, again, the larger the company, the better the severance package will probably be. Right? Again, I mentioned Twitter and how they are, taking care of their former employees for a pretty generous amount of time after they've been separated with the company. Now, if you work for a smaller company, that might not be the case. But you do want to investigate whatever severance opportunities there are. That could include some assistance in finding you new employment. So definitely work with HR. It's important that, when you get laid off, it can be an emotional blow, I'm sure. Have I ever been laid off? Have I ever been laid off? No, I haven't. The closest, no, that was a little college job, but we weren't laid off. In any event, it's nothing personal, guys. I know it can be an emotional blow. I can imagine that. But you've got to continue on. You've got to make things happen. So investigate with HR the severance package. Now, sometimes when people are laid off, it happens right then and there. They invite you into an office, especially depending on what type of company you work for. So you come into an office and they read you the spiel, and then in some cases they get security to walk you back to your desk while you pack up your stuff, and then they escort you out. A lot of the Wall Street firms do it like that. Okay, some other companies don't. Some other companies say, hey, you're they give you the spiel, but then they say you can work throughout the rest of the day or what have you. Okay. And because you're still being paid. Okay. So it's important to leave amicably because you want to be able to get all of the resources possible that you can from that this company is offering you. And you want, again, to leverage that network because you don't know. You could find someone in a situation where they're laid off too, but they get another job that's pretty, good, and it's a job that allows them to hire. If they remember you from the old place, that might create an opportunity for you. So guys, look, again, I don't have personal experience with being laid off. My wife was laid off. This was back in the early 2000s. This is what led her in the direction of entrepreneurialism. She called me out of the blue one day. I was sitting in my office. I'm still a corporate employee at the time. And she says, I remember like it was yesterday. She says, guess what? They laid my ass off. Okay, she said it just like that. She was incredulous. But it happened. And from those lemons, we made lemonade. All right, guys, it is important to understand where you are on the playing field and make sure that you follow some of these steps. Maybe you have more. Put them in the comment section. If you do, we'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, I want you to go ahead and check out people who laid themselves off and went to prison in the process. Elizabeth Holmes, she was the CEO of a company called Theranos. And see, when these CEOs do this, they put jobs in jeopardy. When they get into these nefarious modes and start to defraud people, there are people at those companies that are not involved with that crap, and they're endangering their livelihoods, and they might find themselves without a job. Check out this video that we did talking about how Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX former CEO, the crypto fraudster, how he should be sweating what just happened to Elizabeth Holmes, the former CEO of Theranos. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.